to the In the Sweetgrass with Misty Flowers. In the Sweetgrass is a video podcast that was created as a way to document and share our culture at a wider level. Misty Flowers is the executive director of NICWIC. She is a member of the Santee Sioux Nation of Nebraska and is a descendant of the Tlingit of Alaska and Ho-Chunk.
Featuring special guest Richard Wright Jr. from the Ponca tribe of Nebraska.
Ampetu washe chante washe nampetu zapi ampo mini boja demie washichu ia Misty Thomas Flowers amakiapie isanti damakota. I want to say good day to you. Welcome to another episode of In the Sweetgrass. We are happy to have with us Ricky Wright from the Ponca tribe of Nebraska, and Ricky's going to be talking to us about what's important for families to know and understand if they have a Ponca child, or maybe for families that are disconnected from culture. We know we have adults that have been adopted out many years ago and maybe trying to find their roots. And so I'm excited to be able to talk with Ricky today and to learn more about what's important for our Ponca relatives to know and understand about being Ponca. So Ricky, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Aho, good morning. Ijaje Witake, Ricky Wright. I am with the Ponca tribe of Nebraska. I serve as the culture director, as well as sit on the ICWA advisory board for the tribe.
Oh, awesome. I remember you telling me that, and I totally forgot about that, the ICWA advisory board. So I guess just real quickly, I'm kind of interested in that. What does the ICWA advisory board do?
Yeah, so the ICWA advisory board was established so that we could kind of go through the cases that we have for our Ponca children that are out there. And then just to make sure, hey, are they getting their cultural needs met? Are these cases being handled properly? Are our social services department doing their due diligence, protecting our babies and taking care of them? And so we also receive we'll have families that'll come to us, and they'll say, give us some of their feedback on things that they're experiencing, those types of things. And we kind of just take all that information and we kind of advise our tribal attorney, our social services department, and those individuals, and just kind of give them our thoughts and our feedback. Not saying they have to follow what we say, but just kind of advising them on those things, our thoughts.
Awesome. I'm happy to hear that the Ponca tribe has that ICWA advisory board, because I think that's important, for the families to have that, to be able to provide that guidance to their ICWA specialist and their social services department. That's really important. So how long have you served on that ICWA advisory board?
So I've served on this board for about 3 years. So since I started employment with the tribe, and it's definitely grown. I've seen some great progress being made. We also have some of our council reps that sit on this board too. So it's good to have leadership involved on that level.
Sure.
And it's just, I've really seen it grow a lot, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you. I have more questions about the ICWA advisory board, but I know that's not what we're here to talk about today. So Ricky, what do you do for your regular job?
So for my regular job, I do quite a bit. I oversee our language program, which has really taken off here this last year. Our tribe did put some of our ARPA money towards that language program, which was really exciting. We declared a state of emergency in, I think, 2014. We have now a handful of fluent speakers left between both the Southern Ponca tribe and the Northern Ponca tribe. So we're in a very crisis situation right now. But I've seen, really a lot of growth in that program. We had some of our speakers that were on there could barely say maybe 1 or 2 words, and now they're putting sentences together and conjugating verbs, and I'm really seeing it take off. And so we're very thankful for that. As well as I also oversee our THPO program, our THPO program. And that's a lot. I'm sure that you know a little bit about that. I think that's actually how we first met, Misty, was that. But there's always a lot going on with that. I also oversee our cultural classes that we do at all of our office sites. So the Ponca tribe of Nebraska is kind of unique because we don't have a land-based reservation. And so we have to oversee 15 counties. So we're spread out all across the 3 different states with Iowa, South Dakota, and Nebraska. So it does create some unique challenges, but also some unique opportunities, I think.
Right.
But
Yep.
with culture is one of those things that it's like, well, how do we get culture? You know, so it's kind of like having different cultural centers all across the state. So we have Omaha, Lincoln, Sioux City, Norfolk, and Niobrara. And so that's always kind of a juggling act for me sometimes is not all the office sites are the same and not all of them have the same cultural resources available.
Mm-hmm.
And so I oversee a lot of that. I oversee our cultural events, so our powwows. We have 3 powwows that we partake in every year. And really, it's just everything else that council wants me to do. So I really kind of do a lot within my position.
Yeah, it is a lot, and yeah, remembering back to those TIPO days, there is a lot of work just with TIPO and the Tribal Historic Preservation Office. But so it sounds like you have your hands full. I really appreciate you taking time to meet with me and talk with me today. So when we do this, I have like one big overarching question, and I know like it's a big question, but what is important for families to know about being Ponca, and you can talk about um whether it's family structure, kinship, clan. Well, does Ponca have clans?
Yes, we do. We have 8 clans.
Okay.
And then we also have a mixed clan, which we call Wakehube, which is the mixed clan for those whose father didn't necessarily come from a clan.
Oh, interesting. So is it matrilineal then?
Patrilineal.
Oh, patrilineal. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay, so it goes through their father's side then.
Yes.
So if their mother wasn't or father wasn't Ponca, then they would still have a clan. So can you tell me what those clans are?
Yeah. So we have the Ice Clan. We have the Long-Legged Bird Clan. We have the Black Bear Clan. We have the Buffalo Clan, which would be my family's clan. We have
Okay.
the Medicine Clan, which is the Moncon. And then we also have the Head Clan is one of them that we call it. Then there's also the Blood Clan, and then I'm trying to think here which one I might have left out. I think those are the main ones. And then there's one more I'm leaving out, but there's 8 actual clans, and they've kind of changed too over time. I think that's important to mention. So like as we came back up here north with Machunuja, Standing Bear, some of those clans kind of changed up, and there's some more historical records of things. But there's a couple of those clans that are almost extinct, and one that's extinct now for sure. And that comes from being patrilineal, and I think that's actually kind of hurt us in some ways, because a lot of the fathers of might have been non-native or even from another tribe, and so then therefore that clan kind of died out right then and there, and wasn't able to continue. But the clans are very important, and it's something that we've been focusing on trying to bring back and revitalize up here, tracing back to who would have been your most recent father on that side, who would have been Ponca, and then just kind of going back to that, and that's would have been what clan you would have came from. It is important to know these clans because each clan had a specific role or a specific job in the tribe, and I think sometimes people forget that, and those roles were sacred and very important. And I think everybody wants to be the chief clan, like the Makan, the Medicine Clan sometimes, but they forget, these other clans were just as important, because like my clan was in charge of the annual buffalo hunts that we would do every year, being from the Washabe, the Buffalo Clan. And so every clan had a specific role, a specific job, and a specific duty. And I think that's something that we've been missing here, but it's something that I'm trying and working hard to try to revitalize and bring back.
So that's interesting, and that's definitely good to know. Um I'm curious about the other clans, and I don't know, so I don't know if you can talk about what are some of the roles of the other clans.
Yeah, so there's different like medicines that were associated with some of the clans. One of the great resources that I actually use a lot is Grandpa Lewis Hedman. And he's one that I've really gone to for a lot of things. He's a Southern Ponca relative. And in here he really highlights, the individual clans, the importances of them and what they all did. And it's a resource that a lot of our members they go back to. But in there, each clan he breaks it down and um, like for instance, the Washabe, they planned the tribal bison hunts like I had shared. The Nishta clan was one that's extinct, or the Water clan, and their responsibility is not really even known anymore today. But they were associated with water. The Wazaje, which was Grandpa Standing Bear's clan, they were guarding the entrance to the camp. They were known for being good hunters and could track animals for days and find it. The Nikapashna, the person with the bald head or the head clan, they led tribal members in deer hunts. The Vihida clan or the Hawk clan, there was wrapping pipes with skins of puma. They wore a roach, and so there was different styles that they did, and different responsibilities. They officiated the installation of the chiefs, for instance, and so their clan would have been important when we do tribal council, which we're in an election year right now, and so they probably would have been on the election board and things like that historically and traditionally. The Maka, which is they were in charge of the sacred pipe, which was our religion, and it's still our religion today, if you want to look at it from that standpoint. And so that clan is very important, and that's actually where the principal chiefs would come from. One of the misunderstandings is people think that Standing Bear was actually a principal chief, but he wasn't. He was a clan chief for the Wazaje clan, the Snake clan. And I think that kind of gets left out, but it was actually White Eagle, who was the principal chief of the Ponca during our forced removal to the south. The Nuke clan is the ice clan, and they were known for different ceremonies with water, things like that, where to find the water when we were journeying. The Hisada clan, which is the long-legged bird clan, and they were responsible for guarding the entrance as well as protecting the village if we were ever in trouble and those times of need. So yeah, each clan had each one had a certain role, certain duties. They also had certain taboos, certain things that you're not supposed to do. Like I know for my clan, for instance, the Washabe, we're not supposed to touch a buffalo's head. And then we're also not supposed to eat anything associated with the head, and then nothing with the tail either. And so there's just certain things that are kind of rules, I guess, if you look at it from that standpoint.
That's really interesting. I'm learning a lot here because I don't, I don't know. I honestly I have blood and lineage from the Ponca tribe, but I don't know anything about being Ponca. Everything that I know, I've been raised Isanti, and
Mhm.
it's kind of interesting. I mean, even that relationship going back, and and I being from Santi, I have to mention that, when they put us here, in 1866, they put us on Ponca land. And, and then when they brought the Ho-Chunk, the Ho-Tankada, the Winnebago, because we were relatives, we were neighbors,
Mhm.
the Pon or the Ho-Tankada and the Santi, we were neighbors years and years, for a long time. And we were even in prison together. And so, I mean, going back in the lineage, so I actually have a lineage on both Ho Chunk and Santee, but also, and then they put us on Ponca land. And so I've got Ponca lineage as well. But then the Ho Chunk they put on Omaha land.
Mhm.
And so like I always think like, I think that was done deceitfully. It's like, well, they probably thought we were going to take each other out years ago, like we can't coexist. And so I always feel like that's important to acknowledge because we are on Ponca land here. I sit on Ponca land probably right now, and so for us, and even, with our, and there's cultural sites that show that,
Mhm.
You know, we have Ponca burials within Santee Reservation boundaries,
Mhm.
and those have to be protected. And I feel like that's up to, you know, our tribe to help protect those as well. But you know, so that's it. It's important to know those things. And I feel like, you know, I feel like this is helping me too to help and to know and understand things about the Ponca tribe, because we are neighbors and I
Yeah.
have Ponca lineage. And so this is all really interesting to me, like to learn about that tribal history.
There's a lot of intermarriage too, you know, with
There
the
is,
Santee and the
yep,
Poncas.
there is.
Myself, I mean, I'm even part Dakota too, so.
Okay. Yeah, yep, there is a lot of intermarriage because of, yeah, because when they put us here, they put us on Ponca land, and so our tribes have always been in close proximity to each other. And yeah, so it's gonna happen. And it happens too, you know, I believe with the Winnebago and the Omaha as well, you know.
Thank
Yeah, yeah. Um, so what else? Um I think clanship, you know, so if somebody doesn't know their clan, you know, is there ways to figure that out or to find out?
Yes, yes, there are. And so we also have a tribal historian and a genealogist on our staff in the culture department. She works out of our Niobrara excuse me, our community building in Niobrara. And she's a great asset, a great resource. We get a lot of members that reach out to Trini is her name, and so and they try to, yep, Trini Key, and so they reach out to her, and she just has a wealth of knowledge, and she can go back in our records, a lot of our censuses and things like that, or even our bands and things, and can find those things for people. And so yes, so we do have access to those old archives and to be able to look those things up and find those.
Awesome. That's good to know. So what else would be important for families to know?
I think it's important to know, like, with a lot of our symbolism, I think it's something that we actually, I've noticed, share a lot with Dakota with our symbolism, with floral patterns. And so those are traditional Ponca as well. And I think that stems from our time in the East, because the Ponca weren't always, you know, in Nebraska, or even always a Great Plains tribe. And I think that kind of gets forgotten about in our history. So we actually originated in the East. We have words for Nitonga, which is the Atlantic Ocean. And so we were as far east as that. And in like North Carolina, we found some Ponca settlements and sites. And then we were also at Cahokia, which was a major site in East St. Louis. And so we kind of migrated and came up, you know, from the east and moved west. We have a history at Pipestone, Minnesota, which is where we would have gotten all of our sacred pipes from. Those Nini Bahu base, those sacred pipes. And then we even have a history going farther west into the Black Hills, Pasa Bay. And so we have a history in a lot of these different sacred sites that I think are shared with a lot of other tribal peoples. And I think that kind of gets left out as a part of our history. People just associate Niobrara always with Ponca. But even there, you know, my work with the THPO program, we found, you know, there's a Rickola sites that are in around the Niobrara area. And so there was a people there, of course, before we were even there. And I think that kind of gets left out in that pattern of people moving around and shifting around. And um, I think that needs to be included as the tribal history and knowing a little bit about the Ponca people and why we do things the way we do and why our regalia might be set up the way it is. And um,
Right.
the Poncas have a big impact on powwow too. And I think that part gets left out. Our Southern Ponca relatives will fight and argue and say they had the first ever powwow, you know, way back when. Because they say you can't include your Helushka dances and things like that. So depends on who you ask down there. That gets kind of controversial. But I do know, for instance, a lot of Ponca songs are sung, you know, throughout the country in a lot of different places. And um, you know, the Ponca have never been a rich people as far as money goes. But the one thing that we have, you know, historically been rich in is culture. And you know, and so with the Wazaje, the Osage relatives down south, for instance, when they had a lot of that oil money coming in and they did have a lot of that wealth, well, they would pay the Ponca down there for those songs and to be able to use those songs. And so that was something that we could provide and we could share with them. And as far as like straight dancers, brass dancers, we've women's Southern cloth dancers. And so as far as dancing in powwow goes, we've had a major impact on that scene. And for being a smaller tribal nation, I think it's, I always like to highlight that we've had a big impact on that as far as that powwow community goes. And fancy dancers, of course, can't forget about them either. Those are always exciting to see. And our Southern relatives host the World Fancy Dance Competition down in White Eagle. And it's if you've never been down there, you have to go and see that. It's absolutely amazing.
Wow, that's interesting to know. Yeah, I didn't know that about well, I mean, I guess I knew a little bit, but that's interesting, like what you said about, they were paying the Ponca for their songs. Wow. So what else? What else would be important? I appreciated what you said too about the floral patterns, because yeah, our designs, and like they say that we should be able to look at somebody's powwow regalia and tell what tribe they come from. So yeah, I kind of wish we had some examples to show, so that people could see, exactly what we mean.
We do have a museum up in Niobrara, in our community building right now. And in there we do have examples of those different types of moccasins and breechcloths and things like that people can come and they can check out. And I think another thing to highlight too is just the resources that we have available. And we're trying to create more of an online presence with our YouTube page and different social media things that we really push out. And kind of the idea behind that was we're pushing it out for our Ponca kids, and not even just Poncas, but those non-native families that might have Ponca children in their household. Just to have those resources to share and make them available in public. So a lot of them we have like our language classes and language lessons, which to me is extremely important. It's important that our kids and our children can still be learning their language. And if that means us going out to them, on these platforms today that people are learning from like YouTube and TikTok. We even have a TikTok page that we do a lot of language and culture stuff on. And we're actually getting a big audience in that. And so I think just reaching out to people more. Another issue we deal with, so we have about 5,500 members enrolled in the Northern Ponca. About, give or take a couple hundred right there, but only half of those live here in Nebraska in our service area. And so the other half of those are living in places like New York, Washington, California, and the larger areas. And so the real kind of challenge for me as the culture director has been, well, how do I reach these people? How do I get out to these individuals? Because many of them, even adults, like you were saying earlier, they want to learn more about their Ponca culture, their Ponca history, the language, those types of things. And so a lot of it is really getting those resources out online on those platforms and reaching out to them and meeting like how we are now. We see a lot of our meetings today, we're on Zoom or Life Size or whatever we use. But it's just really getting that information and kicking them out. Something I've been working on on the ICWA advisory board too is creating like cultural little packets and things like that we can share with these foster families. And maybe even talking about, our medicines. Why do we have these medicines? The sage, the sweetgrass, cedar, tobacco, and what's important about these? Why do we grow a Four Sisters garden? With the sunflower being that fourth sister. Why do we do these things, and what's the relevancy behind them? But of course, it's healing. That's really what the powwow is about. That's what reaching out to these people, the language, all these cultural items. It's for healing. And I think that's kind of the emphasis that really gets left out sometimes. But why we come together and engage as a community so that we can be together and heal and just really grow with each other. So
I really love that idea of that cultural package. And so I was I'm taking notes too. And that's something that I really love, because we There's been times, in the work that I do and the work that we do in child welfare, especially if children are with non-native families, like they have no idea, they have no understanding. And so, and even we had a family that, so right away, that's what came to mind, because we had a family, the kids kept having night terrors. And so, I'd asked if they could, would be willing to burn sage or, something at night and, help cleanse it, because you just don't know, what, if there's something there, or, why are they having night terrors? But I said, I don't know, it could help. And so it's going to send them, sage, but, then they're like, well, we have no idea, how to use it, what's it for? And so, we're constantly trying to educate families about those kinds of things, and why it's important and how it helps, and all those things. So I really like that idea. So I'd like to actually see what you all have in that cultural packet, if you would be willing to share it with us.
Absolutely.
The other thing you had mentioned, you've talked a little bit about too, is like language. Some say language preservation. I don't know if I 100% agree with that. That terminology of preservation, because our languages are not to be preserved. As in, because when I think of preservation, like we're putting it in a jar and sticking it on a shelf. That's not what we mean. It's about revitalization, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Or language sovereignty.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Yeah. So we, I guess I was just thinking about, in my time, in my, 44 years on this earth, I can remember, and have seen the shift, and even seeing and hearing our languages being spoken more. And I do notice that it is noticeable, with our Ponca relatives. And so I just wanted to commend you all, because I know that is a lot of work in itself.
It's been an uphill battle, just to say the least. And I remember growing up, my grandmother, she would, mostly the words that she would use in Ponca would be like around the kitchen or cooking, or different things, or Makasabe Gigaho, bring me my coffee, and things like that. But it wasn't really spoken, a lot in outside of those households and things like that. And so I think that's been a goal of ours, is pushing that. And I can't be more thankful to our tribal council for seeing the need for it, and then doing something, taking action about it. It's one thing to know you have an issue or a problem, but then it's another thing to take action behind that, and put some real, it takes money to do a lot of things, and unfortunately that's kind of what it is, and resources. But thankfully we did put those things behind it, and we work a lot with our southern relatives. And I think that's something that I've been really pushing for, is that growth. And, that's something they've still been rich in, is the language and the culture, and those types of things down there. And so, we always talk and we say, well, there's no northern or southern Ponca. There's just Ponca. We are the same people, the same families, the same bloodlines, if you want to look at it that way. So it's been really a treasure to work with a lot of them down there, to rebuild those bridges and those relationships.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, that's interesting too, with the there's no northern or southern. And there are, by the legal definition of, recognition by the federal government, they've divided you all into northern and southern. But that recognition that there's no such thing, we're all the same people.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess one of the things I have a specific question on, because I know that you all are also closely related to the Omaha.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I work a lot with the Omaha tribe especially for THPO, and that goes. And Uncle Calvin Harlan, I don't know if you've met him over there, but he's a great resource and a great asset. And I've learned a lot from him, working just the short amount of time that I have. And that's something we always talk about too when we go to these different events or meetings where all the tribal nations are kind of present here in Nebraska. And we always talk about that, that's our sister tribe, and we have a lot of intermarriage, a lot of interrelationships, and our culture is extremely similar, if not almost identical, almost the same. Our language is very similar. We're both part of the Tequiha language family, with the Osage, the Quapaw, and the Kansa. All 5 of our nations, we speak very, very similar to the same language. And our culture, like you said, we relied on a lot of Umaha teachers and relatives too for different cultural programs and things like that, especially like in our Sioux City area, for instance, since it's so close to over there. And as far as like when we bring singers on, they know all the Ponca songs, and and Ponca singers know all the Umaha songs. And so like there's that similarity that way too. But then as far as like if you go back, we used to live in villages together. We would go on buffalo hunts together. In times of war and famine, I mean, we would band together to make ourselves stronger. And so our relationship with the Umaha tribe has always been great. And then when you look at even Grandpa Standing Bear, when he came home, where did he go? Well, he went to the Umaha tribe. Because he knew he would be accepted there and welcomed in. And kind of the tragedy of that is the Umaha tribe had actually given those Ponca that came back up here a plot of land of their own to live on. And then they were still, of course, arrested by the federal government. And that kind of goes into a whole other spill of civil rights and things. But so yes, the relationship with the Umaha tribe has always been great.
Great, thank you. And I know we're probably running out of time. There's so much to talk about and so much to try to cover, and things that are important for our children and our families to know and understand. So I just wanted to check to see if there's anything else that you feel like is super important for families to know.
I think something that's important to know is just to it's important to know who you are and to know where your roots come from, and to be Ponca, is something to be proud of. We come from a long line of our ancestors, and our ancestors didn't suffer and toil and go through all those hardships for us to forget these things. They did it so that we would remember, and so we could be stronger today. When we think of 7 generations, it's all Native people, and we think that what we do now is going to affect those 7 generations from now, and also remembering those 7 generations that came before us. And so I think that's important to being Indigenous, is kind of the word we're using now more of. But I just encourage these families that are out there that have these Ponca babies and youth, and just to know that we're still here. We're here. We think about them all the time, and we provide these resources and these things, and just to reach out. And I don't know, I can't tell you how many times that just for non-Native families that have these Ponca children, I mean, it's just one phone call. It's all it takes. Get a hold of somebody, reach out. We have resources available. We encourage these families. We'll treat them good if they come to their powwow and those things, because they're doing a good duty and a good job by taking care of our babies, and we respect that. We acknowledge that. We do, of course, encourage our babies to be with us or be with Ponca families, and I think that's really important. That's why ICWA, this court case and things in the Supreme Court, is such an important decision, because we should have the right to take care of our own babies and our own children. That's not something that should be taken away from us as tribal people and as a sovereign nation. And so I guess I could go on and on about a lot of those things, but that's what's really important to me, is just knowing who you are and where you come from.
Yes, most definitely, for sure. Well, I as you were talking, I was thinking about, a lot of things too, is over the years, and seeing how the Ponca tribe has grown and is doing an awesome job of, like, cultural preservation, language preservation, helping protect our cultural and sacred sites. And you talked about the cultural building. I've been out there. I've met I've gone through the museum, and then it's there at the powwow grounds, and then you can go up to that. There's a statue up there of Chief Standing Bear. I've learned a lot of really good things, about the Ponca tribe, and um, and they also have like a Earth Lodge out
Yeah.
there as well, right?
Yes, we do.
And that's pretty cool as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. So was that, can you, and I know I said we were like out of time, but that's okay. We're going to keep going. Cause now I want you to talk about that Earth Lodge a little bit.
Yeah, so the Earth Lodge is one of our, as we came out here to the west and on the plains, there wasn't as many trees, of course, and so we had to find a way to adapt. So we had learned from the Arikaras actually how to build Earth Lodges and how to live in them. And that's something that we kind of modified, and we have one of the, I think there's 3 in Nebraska that are out there. But we have one, and it's just very neat, and everybody loves seeing the Earth Lodge when they come out there on the trail. And we do have an educational trail that's it's open 24/7 to the public, and we encourage people to come out and you can learn more about the Ponca people. And but the Earth Lodge itself is very unique because the way it would have been set up would have been based upon the clan that you were part of, and then that would have been based upon the 4 directions where that would have been located at. And of course, everything moves circular with Native people, and so when you go into the Earth Lodge and it's about 100 degrees outside, you'll notice a huge temperature drop. So they're naturally insulated, as well as when it's real cold and warmer in there. But it's just a good place for us to go in and work with the kiddos, and we tell stories in there and have our elders come in and share their wisdom. And it's just really neat. If you've never seen one before, I encourage people to come out and check it out. And the women actually built the Earth Lodges too. I think that's something that gets left out. So
Yeah.
we come from strong women. So
Heck
they did
yeah.
a lot for our men. So
Yep. 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 And that is it is pretty cool out there, because like I said, the museums out there, that walking trail, I've walked that. I've and I loved how they had there's a lot of the there's a lot of teachings and a lot of history that is shared. I noticed, there was medicines, that were, yeah, and I'm guessing that was, purposeful, and so I love that as well, and that Earth Lodge, and it is a very nice area out there, and so I was thinking about that. So thank you so much, to the Ponca tribe and to you, and for all the work that you all do, and for serving on the ICWA advisory board. That's important work as well. And I just really appreciate you taking time today to share with me, and to help get that information out there. Is there any last words, final words from you?
I just want to say Weeblahan, Misty, and thank you for having me here. And I just encourage people to come out and visit. And for those that are out there, we have resources. All of our resources go for all tribal members usually, and so we don't restrict that to anyone. And I think that's important to note. So if you're out there in the urban areas in Norfolk, Lincoln, Sioux City, Omaha, you can have access to our resources. You don't have to be enrolled in the Ponca tribe. And so I always like to share that with others as we're out here trying to do the good deed for all Native people. So,
and that I am appreciative of that as well. There's because we have a lot of not just my tribe, but tribes all over, have our tribal, I think the statistics are now like over 75% of our people live in urban areas. And so, that's an important resource for our other, for members of other tribes as well. And whenever we're working ICWA cases, here in Nebraska, we always say, Ponca is an awesome resource for families, because they not just serve Ponca families, they also serve other families. So very important work. Again, thank you, Ricky, for taking time and sharing all of that very valuable knowledge with me.
thank you, Shayna.
Thank you everyone for watching. If you have any questions or would like to know more about NICWIC, please visit our website at www.nicwic.org.